page 2. And sorry about the fan from the Mac, it just, you know, bad hardware design. There's not much I can do about that. Maybe it's nav. And so what I could do here is now when you clicked, you set nav.active equals page 2. We'll just make them click back and forth. You can obviously swipe on these things as well. And I don't know why Sublime's getting mad at me all the time. Yeah, I'm not used to this. We'll do the same down here. Button clicked. Set nav.active equals page 1. This will give me enough to hopefully actually have multiple pages. So if I click confirm, and this is what I want. So I'm just going to have this, and we'll trigger the animations based on these. And although the animations in each one look very similar, I'm just going to make them distinct for now and focus only on the animation for one of them, because it can make it really confusing to try and pack up each page to have the exact same animation effect. That requires having a template that has the pages are exactly the same, and I don't really want to set that up to this degree. We could do that. Well, let's see what type of stuff it's saying on the default on the thing there. And this is a permission pop-up, and again, the permission pop-up's reasonable design, but on a mobile device, you're never going to be able to design these things. It's just going to be the system pop-up. Though you could have this as a pre-warning saying why you're intending to use the permissions, and then when you press confirm, then the system pop-up might come. That might help conversion, because if the pop-up comes up randomly, quite often, you know, in an app when it says, I would like to use the camera, you're like, why? And you have no idea. So this isn't so bad. It creates extra load on the user, but you might have a better chance of conversion this way. So let's start with the first one. Let's do this tabbing's really annoying. And we'll make this one, let's just be share location. Share location, and then there's going to be alignment in the center as well. Now you notice there's a horizontal center and a center. Inside a vertical stack panel, these end up being the same thing. They're technically not. You really should actually do horizontal center here. It's going to work the same in this context, but there are some contexts where it won't actually work. But in contexts where it makes reasonable sense, it will actually work. Places like grid will do something different. Alright, so we're going to put some more text here, value equals, and what we should say here, are you happy with Google knowing every place you visit, anytime, anywhere, even in your own apartment? Alright, that seems like a fair location for that, so, and we'll make this one not quite as dark. We'll make that typical, like, something like this. People like doing that. And now I'm going to do something different. Now I'm going to do alignment center, because we know it's going to be too big for the line. So I'm going to do text alignment. And this will actually get it aligned in the text as well. Alright, and I guess I have to put text wrapping on as well. Text wrapping equals wrap. There you go. So we have that, and should one of these have a bigger font size, or should this one have a smaller font size? The issue with font sizes right now in UX is we don't have a way to say larger or smaller. They're not inherited. All you can do is an absolute size, and I don't know what the original design did. Is it the same size? It clearly made the text smaller, and it changed the color. It made it a lot brighter than that. And I'm going to make it slightly smaller, which means I technically have to set the font size and everything, because I don't know what the font size is. So you have it right there. And now we have a bunch of stuff there. Now if you want to put spacing here, there's many ways to do the spacing, and I don't actually mind sticking in things of explicit height like actual spacers. It's sometimes a lot easier than trying to get the margin correctly. Foot 4. Oops. because you can adjust margins and it saves an element, but that doesn't really save that much processing effort. It does, it definitely does, but it's somehow easier to just stick these in rather than worry about adjusting margins the whole time. And when you go to the next page, you see that one out. So you notice there's a bit of a problem here when you have multiple pages, and because the moment that one disappears, it's just gone. It doesn't contribute to the height anymore. And you can either make this thing a fixed height, which doesn't sound so much fun, make them all the same height, or what other location we can do that. But the reason the height changes is because it does adapt to its children, but by default the page control is actually going to remove that element when it's not there. It's going to make it invisible. And there is a way to turn that off. If we go over to Docs, and we're going to do that in this case, we're just going to turn it off. Page control, and I don't know about this search. The search is pretty bad. So search by Algolia, come on guys, there's a search, there's an actual page control class here I want to get at. And I don't know, if anybody is really interested in figuring out what that is, I'm sure you can come on the project and help us get a better search, because it's just not working very well right now. Alright, so we have inactive state. What happens to pages that are inactive? And it has this navigation control state, and that's what's happening there. We have an inactive state, and so I know for sure I want to change this. I don't want them to disappear because I want them to keep contributing to the height. And what options do I have? And I think I have unchanged. Or disabled. Disabled makes more sense. So it keeps them there but doesn't remove them. Uh-oh. Oh, this might be a live reload thing. This might be one of the properties that if you actually attempt to change while the program's running, it may not properly convert it back. So let's just do a refresh here. There we go. And now you see that it doesn't actually change it because it's not getting rid of this panel. That panel's now there. It's disabling it so you can't interact with it. And the reason you want to do that is so when it's scrolling you can't keep clicking the buttons. The confirm's kind of in the wrong place, but we can also fix that later. We can make this thing a dock panel instead. Actually, if you want to see how that would work, if you change this. No, I'll just leave it for now. Let's focus on the one page. If you look at the first effect the graphic has, and this is one we've done before on the show, is this text scrolls in and out. And there's a few ways to do that. And it has two directions, but we're only going to see the one. And this is what's going to be weird. In the first page, we're only going to see the one direction. So let's actually do that. We're going to give this a name. Text A. Actually, this is text 1A. Text 1B. And so on the page now itself, I'm going to create an exiting animation, which should actually be, and I always keep talking about changing the names and never get around to it. They're not great names. Exiting just means it's going to the back of the stack. And this might actually be an entering animation, to be honest. And we'll find out right away. And what I want to do is move the target text 1A relative to equals the size, parent size. And then we'll move the X, I'm going to say 1, that should be fine. Text 1B relative to equals parent size X equals 1 as well. And one of them should move slower, like the big one, so let's move the bottom one a little bit less. It's just nice to have a staggered effect. And now I have errors. What is the error here? I got a colon wrong. There we go. Now something's not actually working right. And I think it's because this is actually an entering animation. And again, the names suck. And one goes one way, one goes the other. It doesn't have to do with which location, direction, and that's where it gets really weird. So Codevoisin, do I like working with UX? I really actually do like working with UX. I think it's a really great language for doing UX, UX design. So it's a name called Language UX, doing UI design. I actually think it's a really great language. Obviously I influence the language a lot. I've worked a lot in UI before, and I find it is actually the declarative language is a really nice way to do UIs. Some of the other platforms, when they're code heavy, nah, they're not as nice to see what's going on. For example, if we look at React and stuff, I don't like the way React does it, where it's just mangled in JavaScript with some weird extensions. I really don't like that. You can't see the structure very well. I did Qt a lot, and it's code heavy, of course, but I've never actually worked with the QML language. Maybe that's good. So I really like reactive, high-level declarative languages for doing UI. I think it's actually the best way to do UI, and it's unfortunate that not as common. Alright, so I changed this entering animation, and alright, so now you notice, well, yeah. One of them moves and one of them doesn't. This is, and you know the reason why is because I have the direction backwards. And share location is actually moving, and this is where it gets really weird, visual anomaly, is because it's moving to the right, the exact distance that it's scrolling to the left, it really looks like it's not moving. So what I'm going to do is, this has to be a minus location, of course, but this is going to make them move really, really fast. So when I do this, you notice how they just completely disappear now, right? They go really fast. And I'm wondering if I can actually stick a delay in there. Delays in entering animations are really weird, but let's just put this one at 0.5 because it's already moving 0.25, and that might move. So you can kind of notice it. And we did a delay in a show before, but let's come back to the delay because I don't want to spend too long on this animation. Just know that it's sort of there right now. You can sort of kind of maybe see it, and the delay is the issue that. Yeah, let's see if it actually works. If it works, great. If not, I'll just ignore it. And yeah, the issue here is that you can't have a delay in an entering animation. We would actually have to use a time frame, keyframes for this to decide what happens. And this is where it gets weird, relative parent size value. Well, let's try it. We're going to use keyframes elsewhere. So keyframe value equals 0 at time equals 0. And so the current keyframe we'd have, if we just want to do the whole thing, we see 0.5 at time equals 1. And that's just relative to that. And that should be the exact same we had before. Okay, you notice the two parts of the location change. And we have to make sure that this is not the value, but this is x, because we only want the x. Otherwise it duplicates the value in all of them. And well, what we have now is we have the option of sticking in an intermediate keyframe. Whoops. Still, I always get the keyboards wrong. And we're going to put this one at 0.5, and that would be effectively a delay in keyframe form, because this is going to extend over the whole keyframe. And there's something weird here, though. It should not jump like that. And it's possibly because this one also needs a duration 1. You have to be very careful not to have mixed animations like that, where you have one with duration 1, one out. I'm trying to think, why does this actually do this? Why? it's actually backwards. I think actually what we want to do is we want to move it up to 1 really fast. This is the end, and then let it sit there. I am trying to think visually in the keyframes, so. And that actually looks more like valid now. And so we really want it to come in at just the last minutes. And these are going really fast anyways. But that's actually, I mean, you may not be able to see this on the stream. And the duration is controlled by the page control, but if I actually do this scrolling, you'd see the same thing, but yeah, let's just move on from there. I think I'm just going to live with that. You can sort of see it on higher frames per second. You might be able to see it a little bit better. And then let's look at the actual animation at the top. It's going to be a little bit difficult to do the exact animation. We don't have the exact same graphics. And let's just pick the one that's relatively easy for now. Let's choose this bell first of all. And you notice there's a background in there, and there's going to be a way to create a component out of this because the background's the same on all of the pages. The exact same sort of burst and some weird background, a weird background pattern. And I have a graphic there, but it doesn't have the right color to it. So let me start up let's start up GIMP. I think I installed it. So I can change the color on it. And wherever GIMP is, let's bring it over to this screen. I can't move the startup screen, so GIMP is starting on the other monitor. I wish there were better ways to use multiple monitors on Mac. This is actually one of my concerns with multiple monitors, why I end up just getting larger monitors, because I've never been satisfied that multiple monitors actually do what I want. Stuff tends to open up in the wrong location or not be able to control it, and never been satisfied with it really. And GIMP is still loading. I mean, the MacBook doesn't have a lot of processing power. It's really useful only if you do a single app at a time with local, no streaming, no multitasking. And it's looking for... Well, it has the warning that this may take a while. It has no idea how long it might take. So maybe I haven't loaded in a while. And you can hear this little fan. If maybe the fan just got louder now as well. Alright, well, let's look at this thing here. We have some sort of background graphic, and it's going to zoom in, so we need to have something button up there, something up there that has space. And just as I say that, it looks like GIMP might actually load. I don't know what happened to it, it's not really there. And that's at the top of page 1, the stack panel. The first thing it has is some sort of animation in it. And I think I'm going to make this a fixed size now. Just because I don't have any elements in there that have a natural size. And Kotobotov, yeah, that is the plan. Is one of the issues now with the speed is that I'm doing the streaming from the MacBook, which it clearly can't handle. Once I get my move done, I'll actually be using a Linux desktop to do all the streaming and visuals, and the MacBook will be strictly for the actual working, and then the working there is just fine. It's the streaming here which is really stressing it. But I'll still have to do the work on the MacBook, and so the MacBook itself is a little bit not so powerful. The other option would be Windows, as Fuse works on Windows, but I really don't use Windows much. But at least with Windows, you'd be able to get a high-powered machine to do stuff, which is not the option with the Mac. But my other machine will be Linux-based, and I'll just stream through that instead then, because that offloads well over half of the processing power. And I don't know why GIMP's taking so long. It's just really... So I'll just move on. What I want to do is I want to create... So the background there, I have a background graphic. I have this assets folders. And I have a pattern. And the pattern is wrong right now, but that's okay. Let's put a pattern in here. Image file equals assets slash pattern pattern.ping, and we could base it on the size of this thing, but we already have a height, so let's let it take the height and let's see what that actually gives us here, if anything at all. Adding some sums don't show up. And so I just created this, I just downloaded this weird pattern because the background he has is actually really just kind of random. And what I want to do is I want to change the color of this. And this is why I need GIMP, is that if the original color is black, we have a color option to image, but it doesn't work if the image is black. It has to be white because it's a multiplicative color, and black times anything won't work. We could probably create like a different mode, but it's generally very easy just to change the color. But let's get the width of this thing right first of all, and those images were, they look to be fairly square. So we're going to say box sizing equals fill aspect. Again, historical names, we never actually got around to implementing the other types of aspect ratio, so it seems to be totally overkill now. And the aspect of 1 is equal to default, and alignment equals center. This is horizontal center for correctness. Alright, and the image file here is obviously just stretching to whatever it is. And stretch mode equals fill, that'll fill it up because I don't actually care about the pattern of it. And so now we have the background here. The issue is that until GIMP loads and I can make this white, it's not going to have the right color, but I can fake it for now. It'll have the wrong color. Just make it all white with a very low opacity, and that might actually make it work. That gets us close to the color that they had. And so that gives us somewhat of the background there. And lost the cursor. And you notice these little dots around the side. These dots are, you could do this as a graphic, and a graphic probably makes very good sense here to do them this way. But since I don't have the graphic for the dots, I'm just going to use a rectangle for them. A rectangle with a stroke, and stick a whole bunch of them around. Well, 5 of them, and they're not quite in the corners, not quite clear where they are, so let's just do it this way. And I'm going to stick them all inside one panel though, because it seems to be stuck inside that panel. I'm going to put one rectangle, stroke color, and I'll make this one red. I'm not going to look all of these up. And the width equals 20, height equals 20, stroke width equals, I should put that beside stroke, it's 3. And the X is something like, where is that thing? X looks like 10%. 10% Y equals 2%. And this one's a rotation degrees equals 45. It's not creating an angle. Let's see if this actually creates a little red dot somewhere. Well, it's a really massive red dot, and it's the margin of 50 is way more than I intended. I guess more 5. And this is a lot bigger than intended, so let's put it down at 10. 10. Or you could actually make them like size dependent. Alright, and the stroke width of 2 looks to be more correct. How big is this little red one? And we'll just do the other ones that way too. Red, purple, red, green, purple. And we'll just stick some in there just for fun. I'm not going to be able to recreate the exact same thing. I'm just looking to get something that has something similar. And showing how you can do some things. So purple would be this one, but it was a darker purple. This actually wasn't that dark of a red. Also with stroke width. And the X here was more like, this is actually pretty close. This is like 90, let's just say 92% to space it out a bit. It's a bit above the red one, so we can actually put this one at 0%. And now we have a purple one over there. Are they different sizes? They technically are smaller ones, but whether you actually see a difference or not, it's actually slightly smaller. And I'm not going to stick all of them, I'm just going to stick maybe 1 or 2 more. Let's stick actually just 1 more. Let's stick a green one in. And the green one should be enough to show the effect that I want to do. Yeah, and the green one is going to be probably 384 or something. And that one's actually even, that's slightly even smaller, so let's make it slightly 2, so let's put 2. And the X is fairly close to the, well, I'm going to make it more close to the middle than what it actually is. I'm going to put it down at 22%. And the Y at 90%. And that gives me a little green one as well. And we have these images all together, and what we can do with the animation now is we can scale that. So we can do a deactivating animation. Now this will apply in both directions, regardless of which way it comes and goes. Deactivating animation. And I can give this panel a name, UX name equals anim back or something. So now we can scale that. Scale target equals anim back factor equals. We don't have to make it go all the way around. Sometimes it's better not to. 0.2. And that should be enough to make that work. So they got mad at something. And I'm going to stick these on a new line just so it's clear that I actually have an error there. And you can notice now, though, that it's tied to the animation, it's tied to the page scroll, which is not what we really want. And it's uncertain if we actually want those scrolling at a different point, different speed. So we're going to create a different timeline. I'm going to create a timeline on here. And I'm going to create a reverse timeline. I'm going to start it in the full normal fade. I'm going to create a reverse timeline. UX name equals, and page anim. And actually, I'm going to do it with while true instead. While true. And it's going to be really weird, though. And I think it's kind of still a hole in the logic that we're missing one sort of animation. We're missing sort of play to the end and stick there, which is what a while true is. But I want the reverse. What I don't really have is a play backwards and stay at the end. I guess we have pulse backwards, though. I wonder if that would work. Let's actually do that. Let's actually time it with a pulse instead, timeline. And then we won't tie it to animation, though. We'll do something like this. And then we'll do this. When it's activated, we're going to do pulse backwards. Pulse backward. Oops, I don't know what that did. Pulse backward. Target equals page, and that might not be the right thing. Target, it might be timeline or something. Of course, our timeline does nothing, and this is where we're going to stick the scale in now. Man, that's getting loud, the fan. Scale equals anim back. Factor equals 0. But now we can stick explicit durations in as well. Duration equals... I just give 1 for now. I'm just going to complain about something. I'm missing... Oh, screw up the file. And you notice one of the issues is that when it's not active, it's kind of in this intermediate state. It's like the activation happens and then it animates. And what we do with that is going to be a big question of, well, what do you want it to be in when it's not there? Do we want to have it somewhere else? Do we want to have it disappear? It's really hard to say. I'll keep working on animation for now. I got GIMP open, and I'm going to open that one file. I wonder if I can drag and drop. No drag and drop. That's unfortunate. Alright, in any case, let's open that file. And where is it? Wow. Use demos. Permission pop-up assets. And now I want the pattern. Well, pattern. What I want to do is I want to do colors probably invert, and that's not very good. So let's just completely well, that's not helpful. What is white? This is supposed to be white. There we go. So we're going to make that white, and the rest is that. Now, GIMP has this annoying thing. You can no longer save stuff. You have to export, which is kind of silly. Okay. And now you notice it went white over here, and that's actually what we wanted, because in the main view, what I want to do is I want to have complete control over the color. So there's no longer FFF2. Now we can say 2220 or something. And that's going to be really, well, that's going to be too dark. And so we have much finer control. We don't even have to make it transparent. We can actually just make it the color we want. And that's still too much. And we have the chance of tinting the colors too, well, if we want. And that gives us a lot more options here, whether we do the tinting and how bright it is. In the original animation, it is still far, far less contrast. You can barely see that thing in the background. So we can either leave the color as is and reduce the intensity, opacity, or because this is a ping and it's opaque, it has an opacity anyways, we don't save anything by removing the opacity. But this is really, really like, there we go, that's really, really subtle. Now for simplicity, I'm going to create a weird function here on this panel. I'm going to create a clicked handler. Just so we can keep testing this. It's a good way of doing it. Debug equals target page anim. I'm going to put a hit test mode equals local bounds. This just gives me a way to test this stuff without having to, so if I click it, we can test it again without having to go back and forth. And when you're developing these things, it's sometimes helpful to have that. But you notice what's not satisfactory here is that I don't know what the original animation did, but the stars, they look like they're popping out. They're not just attached to that background. They're actually popping out. The background's also coming in, but the stars are popping out, which means we have a different layer here. So we have the image, and we have the layer, and we have this one, UX name. I just need to call this, for lack of a name, layer 2 or layer stars. And the image I'm going to give a name as well. UX name equals layer image. So we no longer do the anim back. We're going to do this one. We're going to do the anim back. We're going to do the layer image. And layer stars. And I'm going to give them the same duration, maybe? Maybe they should have a different duration? I don't know. Maybe one should be quicker, but if we change the easing one, if you let the back one there and we say the easing on the stars is going to be sinusoidal in out. And I typed something wrong. Sinusoidal and out, there we go. They have that slight effect. They look like they're detached in time, and it's hard to say whether you want that or something more. And you may want to say the image itself. The image doesn't go down that much because it's less of an effect, and let the stars actually go that much. So now it really looks like the stars are actually coming out, whether that's the key design you want, but at least you can see how to be modifying slight times and easings. You can change the way that looks. They're not took together. They look like independent elements now. The issue with using scale on the stars is actually making them smaller as they go in. You may actually just want them to come out instead. It starts getting a little bit more complicated. So let's leave with this for now. We have those three. And let's add another element to this. What do we have on the page? I want to do the bell ringing one. I want to do just the bell ringing, and I have a bell graphic. And let's do the bell graphic. This is somewhere on here in the panel. It's in the panel. Image file equals assets slash bell. It's nice bell. I have these in the README file where they all come from. You want to go take a look at them. And so now the bell is going to be a bit smaller, and I think it has a fixed size. If we take it, it's like about nearly 50% of the size, so width equals 50%. And I'm not going to worry about the height. I'm going to let it be automatic. And I'm going to say its x is over at, I'm thinking of the center point of it now. The center point of it looks like it's over at 25%. I'm going to put it to 30%. Y equals 10%. And it's anchored. This is where it's going to be a bit weird. The anchor is going to be at 50%, 0% of the bell. And I'm going to actually have to check the graphic. If we actually open up the graphic in GIMP, where would we want this bell to ring? And it's a little bit weird that we have two bells, but the rotation point looks to be about here. And we don't have a way to specify this in pixel size now relative to the source image. It's a little bit weird. And so the image itself is 640 by it's 576. So the actual center is really close to the X center, but the Y is not. The Y is more like 215 divided by 6. It's more like 40%. So let's set the anchoring point there. The anchoring point is 60% equal to 40%. And let's see how that looks first of all. Where do we get the bell? There must be an error here somewhere. What did I do wrong? Line 37. Well, it seems okay. Image file width, I think it got confused on something. So now we have the bell. And the bell is unfortunately at the bottom, which is an odd place to put it. And looks like we probably want to have it bigger. Because we put the anchoring point so far down, and I haven't really questioned whether that's actually correct, the Y actually has to be a lot further down than that, because the Y, although I'm having a hard time visualizing, like that's really far down in the image, and that's what's really weird about this image, is that the center of the thing is really far down. Because you don't want it rotating there. It makes sense to rotate by the bells, but that means we have to put it much further down. And I want to stick it way over far to the left, because it's to the right, because it looks really weird here. And I'm going to stick it above the other ones, because it's the image that goes in the top. And this image, the pattern here, is actually in the background as well. That might help prevent those little dots from being hidden. Oh, it looks like it's reloading. Okay, so we have that. And if you click it again, you can see it. The little dots look like they're coming out from somewhere now. But when we click it now, we want this thing to rotate. And this is where when you rotate back and forth, yeah, you're going to get a bit of a challenge, because you actually have to create a timeline for this. And what I want to do is I want to do rotate target equals, and this has to be equals, let's just call it layer bell. Layer bell rotate, and now I'm going to put a keyframe here. Keyframe degrees equals, and how far does it rotate? Probably 45 to minus 45, something like that. So I'm going to say 45 time equals 0. Keyframe degrees equals minus 45 time equals, and our timeline is 0.1, so let's make it rotate back and forth, like say once or something. It's 0.7. Keyframe degrees equals 0 at time equals 1. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's got mad at me for something. Does not have it. Oh yeah, degrees. This actually has to be degrees Z because there's no shortcut for degrees itself. Now it says Z, but don't be alarmed by that. That rotation in a 2D plane is actually a rotation around the Z axis. Alright, so now we have a little rotating. And it pulses backwards because I have this backwards. This should actually be like 0. It should start at 0 and then it should go to 45. And it should do that by the time it gets to, I don't know, let's say 2, and then it should go to minus 45, and it should do that by the time it gets to 1. Let's just do it that. Well, that's looking a little bit weird. That's not the intended effect. Because it pulses backwards. Alright, since it pulses backwards, we have to make it do the same thing. It has to end up and start. This is once you start using keyframe, you have to be aware of what you're actually doing with it. Why do you want this? I'm going to make 1.5 and it should be back to 0 as well. So now it actually rotates back and forth, and whether that actually makes it look like the bells are ringing or not, I don't know. I don't have the same alignment as his originals, but we have it here, and the bell is supposed to be a lot bigger, it looks like, and the spacing of these dots. But let's just leave that for now. We have that, and I'm going to stick another dot in because that other red dot seems to be having a balance issue if I don't have it there. Oh, I keep using the wrong keys. So x equals, let's do 85%, and then y equals 93%. So now I have that other dot there. It just adds a nice little layer to it. Looks like it's going out too far. It should be more on the circular edges of things here. I'm going to pull it in a little bit. I'm going to put in 80% and 82%. And that moves it up a little bit closer to where we want it. And so now when we click it, we get the bell ringing. And what happens when you activate it, the same thing is going to happen. It's going to ring and the stuff's going to come in. We don't really know how we want to, what should happen to it when it's deactivated, whether it's just not there or what happens to it. Should it be standard? Where is it? Yeah, I'm not really sure what we do with that. Let's just finish the animation. I'm going to think about that another time. How we actually, there's many ways to control what happens. Is it gone? Should it just be disappeared? And yeah, I'm really not certain what to do with that. So we have that, and the 4 dots are okay. We have the basic animation for that. Now, I've taken one of the simpler ones. I have the graphics for the other ones, but I don't think I'm going to do them today. I want to see, can I figure it out? Do we have... No, I have a little bit more space in here. The other back panel, we can stick an item space in here as well, and that actually looks like something we want to do. It gives us more space. And the text here should be fine. It's getting a little too wide for the screen, but let's leave it like that. So now we have that. Now the background graphic does not occupy as much space as does in ours. I mean, it's a lot less than the pattern here. And so I can stick a margin on this one of 20, and that gets rid of it a little bit more, and now it's more focused on the graphic we have. It zooms in, and we have that. And I don't have the same graphic, and so it's not quite the same effect. But we have that basic ringing now. But we don't have, it's kind of a, let's stick this in here, keyframe interpolation equals smooth, make it smoother. You can write your own curves in here. These are full curves of tangent and stuff. Doing it by hand is kind of hard, but we don't have a tool that does it. But now it rotates a little bit better, and whether you want it to rotate more or not is hard to say. And this may be something that should happen a little bit afterwards. So you might want to stick one of these in and say, hey, look, no, actually, you're going to stay at 0 all the way up into... Oh, but remember this plays backwards, so you have to be very careful. This is playing backwards. So we can actually make this stick to 1.8, and this will stay still a bit longer. I thought it stayed still. Oh, because it's sharing the duration of these ones. So let's stick a delay on these of 0.8, and that might actually help. This is where playing with curves and stuff, you really have to visualize the timeline in your head and what's actually happening, where these delays go to. And those delays didn't actually help, which is either could just be they didn't reload correctly, or I've just... Playing backwards can also be a bit weird. I'm bad at visualizing sometimes in the head when it gets too complicated, but it does play for a little bit longer. And you notice the bell actually pauses, so it's actually probably doing what I want. But it's a very short timeline, and the smooth interpolation wouldn't have it just automatically stop, so it's going to smoothly interpolate, and that's going to create a curve on it. But we have the basic bell, so we have that bell coming here, so when it activates, it'll be like that. The question is, what do we do when we come to the page first? Which state should it be in when it gets there? And what does his have? So they're clearly already playing, and this is where I meant about, this gets really difficult in terms of what we want to do, because when we move across, oh, well, it's taken up. Why is it not doing anything now? You notice the animations for the text happens as we scroll, but the animation up here, we said we didn't attach to the scrolling, we've attached it to its own timeline. So it has its own timeline here instead. We could actually attach that to the page confirmation, and wow, what's it doing? My system's overloaded. But there's a lot of options here, because if you attach it to the scrolling of the page, then you can't control the length. And what I don't think we can do is that this one here is both attached to the scrolling of the page and it has an animation, but that may just be because that could just be because he's got the same times involved, and you can do the same thing. You can override the timing. And what I think I can do is I think I'm going to stick with this one, and then maybe next time we can add the other animations. And I'm trying to think of if there's anything we can do, what happens when it comes to the first page. I mean, it's not terrible to have it there while scrolling in and then animate, but it just looks a little bit funny. It's just like, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? And the bells look okay, but we might want to split this. You have an option here, for example, of saying, well, not if we pulse it though. Pulsing is anything. Yeah, okay. I can't figure out, without knowing exactly what I want to do and how to present it. I'm not going to start playing around with it too much. But I think I'm going to leave it at this today. We have that little animation. I showed how to basic animations. This is probably more than you'd see on a lot of pop-up screens, so if you create little ones, that's fine. You have the text which scrolls, and we did that more in one of the examples. There's an example for a shopping cart, which is also on the site, which really plays with that parallax effect a lot more. The parallax effect is here is very limited, and really my system's overloaded now. But what I can do next time is that next time let's add another animation to another page, and I'll think about in the meantime how I do that transition so that we know what's supposed to happen. What is this supposed to look like? Is it maybe just not supposed to be there, but then it looks weird? Is it partially animated and that's really hard to set up? I don't know with that. But this gives enough to work from for now, and I think this is a decent show. It's obviously I can't do the exact same animations, but you could do it. And the next time what I want to do is that, not that one, but this one here with the little paper airplane. With Fuse, we can actually do more than what his does there, and it involves setting up a curve. We can do partial curve animation, and that'll be the key of what that's actually doing. So I'm going to leave this at this for today, and I think maybe making a little bit shorter shows that focus on one thing are probably helpful, and then maybe build on them. I hope you enjoyed the show, and again, if you do want to keep seeing shows, make sure you join or follow me on Twitch, also on Twitter, and consider joining me on Patreon. That'll really help encourage me to do the shows. And I thank you very much for watching, and I'm sorry for the chaotic schedule, but I will throw these all on YouTube, so you can watch them all later on YouTube. You can subscribe there and comment there as well, and I don't mind answering there. I'll gladly answer the questions there or in the Slack channel, and we'll see where it goes. Okay, thank you very much, and until next time.